Yeah, hello, my name is Chris Mohammed. I'm a PLM at RUCKUS, and I'm really excited today to talk to you about a solution that we've actually been working on, which is currently available in product today. And that is simplifying large-scale shared networks. For example, enterprise, multiple dwelling units, such as campus residence living, healthcare, or even non-traditional shared networks, such as marinas and RV parks. Now, these types of networks can be complicated and challenging. So let's get into some of those challenges and show how Ruckus is solving them. Now, this room might be a typical shared living space, for example, student's residence room. And if we think of the amount of connected devices we had just 5 years ago, this view would have been quite different. But now with the amount of devices in the room that are expanding, the traditional methods of onboarding these devices do not scale for today, such as the necessary evil of captive portals or registering those devices. And if we're asking users to locate information about a device, I just felt like we were just damaging the entire customer experience. We've been doing captive portals for many years, and no one's actually said they've had a great or an amazing experience onboarding a device. We all know the captive portals suck, and it's not just a pain for end users, but really a pain for anyone that's involved in the portal in some way. Eventually, the network administrator gets the call about getting a device online. And I've been that network administrator, and it's never been a good time. Now, I've broken down the pain points of large shared networks into three categories: the end users, the network, and the network administrator, who we'll call the network wizard. And if we look at the challenges for those end users, went over them as we just discussed, they've got more devices. That onboarding experience is being very painful. From a network perspective, how can we do things like facilitate roaming or provide personal network isolation, avoid full client isolation, or network configurations of VLANs and layer 3 interfaces, or the avoiding things like SSID explosion, where every room ended up getting a different SSID. Finally, the network wizard. Now that the end users have magically figured out how to get their devices online through some type of portal, how does the network admin actually deal with getting the network configured? How they deal with the automation of putting VLANs out onto the network and layer 3 interfaces? And then what if the end user actually wants to plug into a wired port in room? How do they make sure that that wired port is also connected to their personal area network? Ruckus launched network segmentation last year to tackle these challenges. And the solution is based around dynamic pre-shared key technology, which provides a single SSID for all users to connect to. Each user is given their own dynamic pre-shared key to use on their devices. And we had investigating using VLANs for the solution or things like Q&Q, but we just required a technology that could scale past the 4096 VLAN limit or wasn't as complex as other options. So each user is automatically assigned their own network based on VXLAN, a VNI. And using VNIs, our solution can scale up to 64,000 networks, unlike VLANs that have that 4,000 limit. Now, as a user, when I enter in my dynamic pre-shared key on any of my devices, I'm automatically put into my own unique network. I have a single dynamic pre-shared key that I use on all my devices. And I can use the same key on my phone as I do on my speaker or any other device connecting to Wi-Fi. For example, we have Happy Jim, and he's in room 667 and has his own dynamic pre-shared keys for a single building-wide SSID. Jim uses that dynamic pre-shared key on all of his devices, and all of his devices can communicate with each other. Jim, John, Daryl will have a unique dynamic pre-shared key and a unique personal network that is assigned to them. So if Jim wants to stream to a speaker, all Jim has to do is swipe down on his iPhone and he can find a speaker and he'll only see his devices. Jim's network is essentially defined by the BNI. And the same with John and Daryl. John has a unique dynamic pre-shared key and VNI, and so does Daryl. John can only see his devices, and likewise with Daryl, he can only see his devices. So let's have a look at Jim's experience with onboarding his devices. Now, when Jim receives a dynamic pre-shared key, and that's provided via email or SMS, he can simply use that dynamic pre-shared key on all his devices. Jim is not having to visit some type of captive portal. We're not asking Jim to find a MAC address. I think Jim uses Windows anyways. We aren't asking for any information about the device from Jim. He simply enters that dynamic pre-shared key on all his devices, and they're connected to his own personal network. Again, no captive portal page, no asking him to scan a network, no asking Jim for any information. Also, if Jim has an access point in room, his ports will automatically be provisioned with the same VNI number. So if Jim has an Xbox or some other wired device that he wants to plug in, he can easily do so and communicate with it from wired to wireless. What's important here is there's still no asking Jim for any information or having to visit any type of web page to enter information about those devices. What you're seeing here is what we've called a tenant portal. Now, this portal is really unique for Jim, which we're going to demo in a moment, and gives Jim control over his dynamic pre-shared key. This gives him the ability to view his dynamic pre-shared key or any of the devices that are actually using that dynamic pre-shared key, or even provide things like guest access. So as soon as the device uses Jim's dynamic pre-shared key, it will appear in the portal. Jim can edit those devices, provide names, descriptions, as well as actually provide a guest passphrase. And that guest passphrase is unique to Jim and to Jim's portal. So if you have any guests that are coming over, they can go ahead and scan a QR code or enter in that dynamic pre-shared key on their devices, and they're automatically tied into Jim's network. Now, I've asked Jim to provide a picture where he's smiling to show happy student Jim. And this, I think, was his best effort. So I appreciate that, Jim. The portal also provides QR codes to easily onboard any device that can scan it. You know, passphrases are available, as well as things like automatic language translation. Now, this is not an app, but a web page that's dynamic and reactive to any device that's using it. And this tenant portal actually consumes our own public APIs, so we can easily integrate this with other systems. These users, rooms, devices, groups of devices, however you really want to define that, they all can be managed through the CloudPath GUI. But we've also built a similar experience for front desks or help desks that need to provide tasks such as resetting units or resetting passphrases, providing that login information, doing things like suspending accounts, or even providing announcements. Now, this is a separate GUI that does not require help desk or front desk to log directly into the CloudPath controller, doesn't require them to log into the tenant portal. And again, this is a different experience. It's not an app. It's another reactive web page. And again, this is also consuming our own APIs, and we will be demoing this as well in a moment. The network wizard, he doesn't have to worry about assigning things like VLANs, tags, trunks, or setting up scopes and DHCP and NAT. This is all automated for them. The end user's network is already configured before day one. And when the end user is ready, he's connecting to the network automatically over wireless or wired. And the network's already ready to be consumed. There's no waiting for someone to add a tag or add a trunk or another layer 3 interface. There's no network administrator going around pinging interfaces to see if they're up, or which VLANs he can choose to provide an experience for the end users. And they only have one SSID that they need to worry about. We can provide that key to that end user one time and have the end users manage that key if they would like to. There's no making sure that, that device, his MAC address is recorded. There's no getting those calls, and, there's no need to worry about having some type of VLAN 4000 limit. Now, this is available today in SmartZone, DataPlane, and CloudPath. SmartZone, DataPlane, CloudPath, they're all communicating over API, with SmartZone providing the configuration, network segmentation, WLANs, access point information to CloudPath. And then in CloudPath, you're really configuring things like properties and configuring those portals. The automation of the VNIs is all done through CloudPath, as well as dynamic pre-shared keys.
Or is it supported in 6 gigahertz?
Is dynamic pre-shared keys supported in 6 gigahertz?
Yes.
So this question, it's a good question. And as you kind of said that, I've had about 3 lawyers just magically pop up into my room here. So yes, so dynamic pre-shared keys is supported under WPA, WPA2. I can say that this is, we're definitely looking into the solution, and we're going to have something really exciting come out where, we want to make it as simple as, probably even simpler, to onboard your devices than what we've done with EPSK. So I've logged into CloudPath here, and CloudPath is a live system, and it's hosted, I think somewhere in my lab, but we provide a hosted system as well. Now, CloudPath can be used as a PKI, radius server. We've got policies enabled for wired and wireless and enterprise environments. We can hand out those dynamic pre-shared keys through workflows as well. But we're going to look at how RUCKUS can really solve the large scale, shared networks, such as a campus or student residence, and kind of the slides that I previously provided. Now, I already have CloudPath communicating with a SmartZone controller in my lab. So I can go ahead and click on integrated systems, and I can see that I have communication to a controller over HTTPS. Now this is just exchanging API information between the two systems. And now we've added a new menu item on the left-hand side of CloudPath here that's called Managed Access. And now I've zoomed in a little bit with the screen just so that we can have better visibility. But I've clicked on Managed Access, and now there's actually a tab here called Network Segmentation. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to slide this over a little bit so we can see it better. Now I have one network segmentation group being provided by SmartZone. You can have multiple network segmentation groups in SmartZones presented to CloudPath. And those network segmentation groups can be assigned to multiple different properties. And you can define properties however you want to. In our example, we'll be talking about campus living or campus residences. So if I click on the spanner here, I can actually see information about the VNIs, start ranges, end ranges, as well as any of the access points that are actually being provided by SmartZone. So if the SmartZone is presenting the access points that we want to participate in network segmentation for their wired ports, CloudPath will get all that information into its system, and then you can assign the access ports to different rooms, which we'll also have a look at in a moment. So I have my access points here. I can see that if I click on this magnifying glass, I get information about the MAC address, serial number for this access point, and as well as any port information where we assign those VNIs. So I know that LAN 1 and LAN 2 are assigned to VNI 12799. If I click the Assign VNIs tab, I can see that what the ranges of VNIs, the total VNIs that are available, the assigned VNIs, the remaining VNIs, and where they are actually assigned. All right, so let's go ahead and have a look at the properties. Now, the properties can be defined many different ways. For me, I've got campus residence. I also have other properties within this instance as well. And we're going to dive into the property here by clicking on the spanner again. And now I've got information about the property, and For this example, it was just one student residence. I can see information about it. I know the dynamic pre-shared key pool that I'm using, and this is all within CloudPath. You can have as many dynamic pre-shared key pools that you want, having hundreds of thousands of DPSKs. And we've enabled things like guest DPSK, how many units are actually using this property, and then other things like sending emails and SMSs on change. So within that portal, if Jim says, well, I want to change my pre-shared key or change my guest pre-shared key, we can go ahead and notify Jim that the pre-shared key was actually changed, as well as any of the VNI information that we're pulling from the network segmentation group. So I'm going to go ahead and click on units now. And we see that I've got a couple of units defined that went along with the narrative previously. I've got Jim, John, and Daryl available here. And we see that Jim has his VNI number, his access point, and any ports that are available to Jim. And now let's go ahead and look at Jim's unit here. And to look at Jim's unit, I'm going to click on this magnifying glass. And within the unit, I can have information about the unit, any description that's available, if it's active or not. If you suspend the unit here, we'll remove all of Jim's devices from the network and revoke his dynamic pre-shared key. If Jim comes back and says, well, I'm here for another semester, we can simply unsuspend his account. His dynamic pre-shared key remains the same, and all his devices will connect back to the network. We also have QR codes, so if Jim wants to, he can scan the QR code and get access to his portal, as well as his dynamic pre-shared keys that he is using, as well as his guest dynamic pre-shared key, and the access point that's actually being assigned to him. Now, you can assign access points to a single user in a single room, but sometimes there's challenges where you have things like doors within doors. So there may be a common area and then maybe 2 or 3 doors as well with students or other residences. So what we've done within CloudPath is saying if the access point maybe is in a shared location, maybe you want to actually split those Ethernet ports for other users. So if Jim was sharing a room with Daryl, we can go ahead and we can assign Jim the access points for his room for Jim to the same VNIs of LAN 1, LAN 2. But if Daryl wants to, we can actually assign the access point to Daryl and then give Daryl LANs 3 and 4. So Jim's VNI numbers will be available on LANs 1 and 2, and then Daryl's VNI numbers will be present on LAN 3 and LAN 4.
Is
Yes,
this
sir.
something that the end users can do themselves if Jim and Daryl are in the room and Jim doesn't want to call IT or whatever?
So we can do that within the CloudPath GUI. So right now, it's available within the CloudPath GUI to actually provide that access. When I get to the property management portal, we'll actually have a look at that as well, because there's some access capabilities in that portal too. Let's go ahead and actually log into Jim's tenant portal. Now, Jim's already using it. He's put on his DPSK on his devices, and looks like he's got 4 devices on there today. And if you wanted to go ahead and manage that portal, we will email him the link to the portal automatically through CloudPath. And so I've clicked on the link. Now, when they're accessing their portal, again, this is all public APIs, and we can, we integrate with other systems today. But within CloudPath, we actually provide an identity for Jim within that URL, which is basically a hash. Now, if I click this information bubble, there's an access token that's provided for Jim. The access token will be different for John, Daryl, and anyone else that signs up for the service. So if you notice, there's really no login screen for them. All they do is actually click on this access your portal button, and now they're logging directly into their portal. And you can see that there's some messaging, there's logos available. It's all customizable within CloudPath, we'll get to in a moment, but we can give some messaging like connect to the campus Wi-Fi, any type of welcome message will be available here. We can see that Jim's passphrase is visible here, right? Any devices that he's put online, as in he's put the DPSK on the device, it will immediately be available here. The QR code, so if Jim just wants to has a device that'll scan the QR code, we'll automatically provision that device for him through this QR code. If Jim wants to reset his passphrase, we can reset his passphrase as well. Once he resets his passphrase, we'll automatically kick off all of his devices. If Jim wants to go ahead and even search for devices, maybe it's a longer list, we'll provide pageation, but I've got a short list here. So, he can filter that out and provide things like name and description for that device if he wants to. And then we have this idea of guest Wi-Fi as well, which is tied into the same VNI that Jim is using. So, and I kind of selfishly built this for my kids. Friends would come over and they want to join the Wi-Fi and play Minecraft or whatever they're going to do over layer 2, or stream to a speaker or TV, and you hem and haw about giving them your passphrase. Well, now we can give them a completely separate passphrase, and that still is tied to the same network. So when they do scan it, they join, and then we can go ahead, or Jim can go ahead and provide that QR code. Everyone scans it, and they're automatically on the network in Jim's world, and can control Jim's devices. But when they leave, we can go ahead and reset the guest passphrase. And when you do that, all the devices are, again, immediately kicked off the network. Any type of announcements we can provide within the portal as well. And also any type of help information we can provide here too. I'm going to jump back into CloudPath here. I think we're done with Jim. Now we have an option for look and feel. So, you have the ability to provide edits to the titles, subtitles, any login text, as well as announcements and help text. And then you also have the ability to change colors. And keep in mind that when you make these changes to the colors, you're not just changing Jim's tenant portal, you're changing all the colors and text for the entire property. So any color changes will also show up for Daryl and Jim, and these changes are immediate. So I don't like the color, I can adjust the color. I don't like the logo, I can adjust the logo. Or even if I want a GIF or anything else, I can provide that here too. Or if I want to change the tab icon, that's also available in product. Now, any of the messaging that comes out of CloudPath is all available here too. So you can customize the messaging for whatever deployment that you're using. Now, this is campus residences, and you can provide whatever messaging you want when they're assigned a unit. So as I created Jim, either through back in this unit page here, if I created Jim through this GUI and I added the unit here, or I use the API to connect and create a unit, or I even use something like our template using CSVs or XLS, we can go ahead and import that information. As soon as you do that, the end user emailed and messaged information about their DPSKs, the tenant portal, whatever Ethernet ports are available for them. And all that customization of the messaging available here. So anything that's a $ and a mustache or squiggle bracket is available as a variable. All right, so we've seen the portal, we've experienced it. We've seen how easy it is for users to onboard devices, scan QR codes, just use the DPSK. But let's go ahead and have a look at that management portal that is also available. So I'm going to click on the management portal here on the left-hand side. Now, just like the tenant or properties, you can have as many management portals that you require. I'm going to click on the spanner. I only have one for this example, but I'm going to click on the spanner. And properties can be defined in multiple management portals, and I'll get to that in a moment, but I can see there's information about the portal as well as any type of RBAC controls. So if you wanted to provide maybe the front desk of the residence, in our example of the residence, the ability to, just have a look at portals and users, but not be able to create units or delete units or reset passphrases, but maybe just change the state or tell them what ports they can use. We can provide that as role-based access control. But if you say have maybe a student help desk that needs elevated privileges, you can provide a different management portal that has completely different role-based access controls for that same property. So if they log in, maybe they do have the ability to reset passphrases that maybe the front desk at the residence doesn't. So I'm going to go ahead and look at what one of those portals URLs look like, or property portals look like. So we have properties, and you can assign as many properties as you want to that same portal. And if you look, I also have look and feel, and we can go ahead and also provide similar things to the portal for messaging, and colors, any types of logos. Those are all unique to the portal. So let's log into that management portal and see what that experience looks like. So I've defined users here as well. So I'm logging into this portal, and I'll go ahead and put the screen back normal size. And so I have the properties that I'm able to manage within this portal. As a user, I've logged into it. I can see I've got campus residence. I also got Greg's Crab Shack rental property. I can filter this, sort this however I want. I'm going to click on this action button to go ahead and manage our campus residence. So I've clicked on that. Now you see something very similar. I've got the logo. I've got information actually saying that this property uses network segmentation. What's really cool about our solution, at least from portals and DPSKs, is that you may ask, well, we have a legacy network and we want to use VLANs for that. Well, this solution will also support that. You can still use the tenant portals. You can still use the property management portals instead of using VNIs. If you want to use VLANs, that is also available. So in our example, we are using network segmentation. So we are using VNIs. I can log into here, and my same users are available. I can see their status. I can see that Jim is one of the users, and I can filter these if I want to, but let's go ahead and, well, I feel like I'm really picking on Jim here, so let's pick on him a little bit more.
He deserves it.
All right, so now I'm looking at Jim's portal here, or his unit, and I can see that he's still active, but I can go ahead and do that same option of just suspending that unit. So if I'm a front desk and I have the ability to suspend him, I can click on that, and Jim's devices are kicked off the network, and his DPSKs for guests and Wi-Fi are suspended. When he comes back, I can go ahead and unsuspend it. Now I've got full rights in here, so I can go ahead and modify Jim's description. And sounds like you guys have some clever wording that I could probably use for Jim. Any of his passphrases are also available here, as well as QR codes. But if Jim is here for a certain length of time, we can actually set things like expiry dates for Jim as well. So if Jim was set to expire at a certain date, maybe the end of the term at a certain time, I can do that in the portal here as well. So that's unique to Jim and not unique to Daryl. Daryl will have a different expiry time if needed.
Do your end users know, do they feel like they're in control of their own little world there? Or do they know that someone else is really in control of their world and can see everything they do?
So maybe define see everything they can do. So within the tenant portal, they have all access to their DPSKs. Now this portal, this management portal, it's a good question. This management portal, if you want to use it as an administrator, that's great. You can use it. There's no dependency on having to use the management portal for this. And also there's no dependency on having to use the tenant portal for DPSKs. Those things are optional. When we presented this to customers and partners, and they're all using it today, they like the idea of the management portal because it gives them some visibility, not into what the end users are doing, but the ability to actually help the end users when they do run into any type of challenge. So if the end user says, well, hey, this passphrase I've forgotten, they can contact the front desk, And again, the front desk can go ahead and randomize the passphrase. And once they do that, we can go ahead and just email the end users their new credentials.
Thank you.
Can you do that as part of a workflow? So like, let's say I have
Yeah.
a ton of users who are coming in for 2 weeks. Can I import them, but also set passphrase expiration and then also send that credential to their email?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all available within CloudPath. So now if they ever call and they say, hey, what ports they can use, these ports are available here. There is a roadmap feature that will provide what was previously asked of maybe I want to designate ports within this portal. But you brought up an interesting point of do we want tenants to be able to do that? So thank you for that. And then within the assignment, if I want to just unassign Jim's unit because maybe he's left for the term, I can go and somebody else is moving in. In here, I can go ahead and unassign that unit. We go ahead and reset the passphrase. Any devices that we're using that Jim may have lingering around automatically kicked off the network. New user comes in, and we go ahead and they can go ahead and provision. We've seen what the CloudPath is, tenant portal, management portal. I think we've shown how we can solve some large scale networks and put some power into other people's hands.